dare and drive. These three words encapsulate the journey of nearly 2,500 students who have made their way to Pithampur in Madhya Pradesh. Over the course of 5 days, these students will use their engineering acumen to face challenges, conquer their fears, and aim to realize their potential.
And all that isn't just with an eye on a podium finish, but with the hope to influence the future of the Indian automotive industry. But it's not only about the journey of the students. This year marks the 10th edition of the Mahindra BAJA SAE India. And what began as a niche event for 27 participating teams is now a must-do for every engineering institution in the country.
When BAJA SAE India was conceived back in 2006, there were very few takers, simply for the fact that there wasn't enough awareness. It was an extremely bold step at that time, led at the forefront by Dr. Pawan Goenka, who was convinced of the benefits a collegiate engineering competition could bring to the table.
My biggest concern was that in India somehow the engineers do not think of automotive industry as a place to make a career. And I think this was partly because the excitement of being an automotive engineer was not experienced by the people in colleges, engineering colleges. There still was a belief that perhaps nothing much happens in the R&D labs of Indian automotive companies, and it's more of sort of cutting metal, and which sort of high-end engineers won't get too excited about at that time. And therefore, we thought that if somehow we could expose these students to what actually is designing and building a car, and then they can really get engaged.
So this was somewhere in 2006. In the beginning, we were discussing about SAE India and its role and how do we increase the membership base of SAE India. And we have an SAE India managing committee where Dr. Goenka was the president and I was the youngest member in that committee. And I thought that if we want to have more student members with so many engineering colleges, then we need to do an event for them. So in the next meeting I said we can do Formula which runs at 100 km per hour or a BAJA which runs at 50 km per hour. So the committee was not very keen because it is how can a 20-year child run a vehicle at 50 or 100 km and kill himself. So they said no, this is very unsafe thing, India cannot do it. I had a very good support of Dr. Goenka, so we made a strategy and then Dr. Goenka wrote to all the industry saying that we want to do this event and how about you sponsoring. And to our surprise, we got a very good response and money just flew in. And then we went to various colleges. We were able to convince 27 teams and that's how the first BAJA had 27 teams.
It sounded like a regular motorsport event, many of which I used to conduct back in that day. Pawan said, why don't you, head the event? And I said, very well, not knowing exactly what I was getting into. But it's been a great journey.
Over a year of preparation later, the first ever BAJA SAE India was held at the National Automotive Test Tracks or NATTRACS facility of NATTRIP in Pithampur. Spread over a sprawling 4,000 acres of land of National Highway 3, it was only apt that the biggest future strength of the Indian automobile industry, its engineers, go head-to-head in an engineering competition at the country's premier auto testing and benchmarking facility.
This is an automotive proving ground, where the manufacturers both from the country and abroad come here to test the vehicles. But then by hosting this BAJA event during the stage of construction of proving ground itself, has given us an opportunity to interact with the manufacturers both from inside the country and abroad. So that is how we are benefited by interaction with the manufacturers while they are here for the BAJA event.
There's no doubt that we've come a long way from that cold morning in Pithampur in 2007. This area is now a thriving automotive SEZ, mirroring the evolution of the event itself.
Yes, the event has grown in leaps and bounds in every aspect and every metric. This year, BAJA SAE India received over 400 registrations from across 23 Indian states. Support from the industry has increased as well. From just 10 sponsors in 2007, the event now enjoys the luxury of over 40 sponsors. And as for the brands, OEMs and facility providers, the event's mammoth reach is merely the starting point of the benefits accrued.
I, at that time, had to personally get involved in marketing the event. Now I don't need to. I'm only told that we have exceeded the target. And I had to tell sponsors, because often the sponsors will come, okay, this is what I'm going to spend, what am I going to get? And I have to tell them that, look, if you're going to do a laser balance, let's not talk. Because it's not a question of this is what I spend and this is what I get. It's a question of, are we interested in making Indian engineering students excited about automotive industry?
I remember still that we initially started off with something like 25 cans of 2 liters each, and that is what was the first fuel station I remember, on a 4x2 foldable table with just a little backdrop of Bharat Petroleum. And then as we moved along, we found that there was more and more response to this event. Starting off from 25 tins and 100 liters of petrol, we grew as the event grew, and today we offer students close to 2,000 liters of petrol. This long journey has taught us one very, very good thing. That is when we look at our own organizational objectives. One of the important objectives there is, our passion to do things.
There were initially sponsors who used to sponsor but never used to come to the event. We pushed them to come and witness the event. When they came in, they were themselves surprised that this is the event where they are supporting. They go back, they talk to people, they proudly tell people that we are associated with BAHA and this is what we are doing and this is what is it. Until you see it, you don't believe it.
For Cummins, BAHA is an integral part of our recruiting process. We see lots of young students that we can help and that we can develop. So we look for the practical aspects. BAHA gives them a perfect platform to develop their practical skills.
Sponsoring such events, not only in terms of the monetary things, it's about how we can add value. It's a bridge which we are trying to create and tell the students what is being expected from them so that they can be more inclined towards the industry requirements.
Boy, what a difference a decade makes. At its very core, BAHA SAE India remains a competition. It's a litmus test of each student's skills and capabilities, not in the examination halls, but right here in the real world. From a modest initial participation of 27 teams to a whopping 414 registrations, it's a phenomenal growth rate by any standard.
With over 414 teams in the fray, this was the biggest BAHA event yet. And for all these teams, the journey began with the virtual BAHA, a concept first introduced in 2010. Here, students were required to produce a digital prototype of their vehicles. Only around 180 teams made it to this final stage after passing college-level technical inspections.
This year, the track would be tougher. That's our USP. Every year we take it to a level, and that's the reason why Indian teams are participating in India and winning the BAHA event. They perform extremely well and they're winning even the international events.
This year we are having more than 5,000 students, 185 vehicles. That many pits we have to make. We have to make arrangements for them to stay, and we have tried to see that almost all the pitfalls. Every year we try to improve on, not only in terms of the raising the bars for the event as such, but even the arrangements what we made.
What's interesting is the development of the BAHA SAE India competition, which mirrors the growth and the evolution of the Indian automotive industry. There is no bigger example of this than the e-BAHA or the electric competition. What you see behind me is the cream of the crop. These are the vehicles that are set to compete to win top honors. But first, let's get to the e-BAHA story.
Introduced in 2015, Electric BAHA, or e-BAHA for short, was set up to serve the need of the hour. And the idea stemmed from a meeting with the late Dr. Abdul Kalam, then serving as the President of India.
We had approached his office and we wanted to take an appointment to meet and present an invitation to be a chief guest for the BAHA event. When we went there, he just looked at the invitation, he looked at our faces and he said, "What is the new what you are doing?" So he said, "Why don't you do e-BAHA? I want alternate fuel, alternate energy. Why don't you work on that? Why don't you work on that platform?"
When we did the original BAHA, the objective was to get students excited about automotive industry. Now the objective is for bringing the electric vehicle technology into college campuses. And I think this year we have some 35 teams, and as we move forward, the number will go up. And that should probably help to get the electric vehicle technology. And electric vehicle is the future. I mean, there's no doubt about it in my mind. One may argue hybrid, electric, this, that, other, but electric vehicle in my mind is the future. And that will certainly help to bring that technology to college campuses.
Similar to the previous 2 years, all the teams were supported by Mahindra Reva with technical assistance, subsidized electrical components, and several design-level lessons to get their buggies up and running. For students designing the electric ATV, the main challenge is obviously to match the performance of a conventional Baja buggy. The batteries take up a lot of space, and at 210 kgs, the electric powertrain weighs quite a lot compared to the single-cylinder Briggs & Stratton units of their petrol counterparts.
Last year's weight was around 500. This year's weight is approximately 380, 390. We have reduced by giving less room for everything.
During our last year, we had shoot All India 4th position, but this time we had tried a new one, which is a front wheel drive, which is very rare to only, which is limited to only some of the vehicles.
We have a custom-made lithium-ion battery, which powers the cooling systems and all the cooling fans, which saves power of the main battery.
The electric drivetrain produces 17 horsepower and 54 Newton meters of torque. Like their petrol-powered counterparts, the e-Baja teams had to take on all the static and almost all of the dynamic test events. These tests prepared the teams for the final endurance challenge.
It's just the propulsion system that's different. And of course, certain limitations with the batteries and things like that. But otherwise, yes, they should be doing everything that the M-Baja does.
We didn't expect so much competition, but this year, yeah, there is competition.
30 to 35 vehicles competing in a race, in a track is very challenging and very excited.
We are very confident about the endurance test because we have had rigorous testing.
Determined to finish, the silent yet strong e-buggies managed to make their way around the challenging track. The minutes crawled by, but the buggy showed no signs of breaking down, clearly signaling a bright future for electric mobility in India. Eventually, with the endurance test done and the points tallied, the Sinagad College of Engineering from Pune claimed top honors. Let's take a quick break here, but stay tuned, for coming up ahead is the story of the biggest stakeholders of this event, the students. We're at the 268-acre NATRIP facility in Pithampur, Madhya Pradesh for the grand finale of the 10th edition of Mahindra BAJA SAE India.
Now, 10 years ago, if you told a bunch of mechanical engineering students that they could participate in a competition such as California's Baja SAE, they would have shrugged their shoulders in dejection. But 2007 changed all that, and how?
Assemble a team of 25 students and then go on to design, fabricate, build and validate your very own all-terrain vehicle. Sounds like a simple process, but it's really not. Yet, the process has taught them a lot, and for some, has even shaped their personalities.
I was in my first year when I was a part of Baja. My team's name was Ichno Clusters. I remember a yellow buggy we made. So I was responsible for the cost part of Baja, and I used to go to my seniors and say, what's the cost of this particular part, and this all, give me the bills, I'll just consolidate. So I remember I went down to almost 15, 16 sponsors, and we used to go and show them a presentation, and they used to come back and say that, yeah, we will look in, but on the first year I could not manage even a single sponsor. So finally that sponsorship presentation which we gave to our sponsors got converted to a marketing presentation at the Baja event. And I realized that, my experience in putting my team in front of sponsors helped me a lot to convince the judges during the presentation rounds in the first Baja. So when I go flashback and I think what it was when I was a participant and what I felt during that time, it's great.
I heard of Baja from my seniors. They were going for the competition in 2013. So I just went to the workshop like that, and I just saw them working. It was amazing. It was not about making a vehicle, it was about like the passion with which they were working.
When I participated, it helped me in my engineering. Since I am volunteering for the event, I am learning many of the leadership skills which I would be needing at the later stage of my career to lead a company or a place.
Driven by its objective to bridge academia and industry, Mahindra BAJA SAE India has successfully given the country a new breed of passionate engineers.
What Baja has enriched in me is that they have given me an entire dimension to come up with problem-solving techniques. So whenever there is an issue back in my office, they are like, hey, the Baja guy, please come and tell us what can be done in quick time.
There are many ways to get into the industry, but if there is a platform to show up your talent, bridge the gap between your technical skills and your practical skill, it would be Baha.
And whenever you talk to the employers, they always say that Baha students are performing very well and they are ready to work from the day one.
We believe that we hire for attitude and passion, and we train for skills. So once we have that attitude and passion, then it's easier to train people.
Over the years, the increasing difficulty of the competition has never fazed the aspiring engineers. So much so that Indian teams have already started to make their mark in global competitions.
I have benchmarked 2 USA events, and I am seeing our at least 8 to 10 participants from India goes to USA, South Africa, and they do very good in their events. In terms of the technicality part, for their ground testing, for their endurance testing, we are almost at the same level. And since our level of difficulties we have increased in past 3 years, they are also gradually upgraded their vehicles to that extent.
The finish rate has steadily climbed as teams have gained more experience over the years. And teams will vouch that a playbook exists of clear do's and don'ts. But let's face it, judged by the very best in the Indian automobile industry, Baja SAE India remains a grueling competition.
It all begins with a simple registration, following which each team is allotted a garage and then given time to spruce themselves for the technical inspection and presentations. With the entire event aligned to the best practices followed in the automotive industry, aspects like safety and technological innovation now form the basis for stellar buggy design. The marketing presentation is a marketer's dilemma. The cost analysis and evaluation reports hone analytical ability, while the design report is an engineer's vision.
The basic aim of our vehicle was to phase out all the OEM components we have in our vehicle. So we have custom designed and custom manufactured each and every component we have in the car except for a few OEMs such as the suspension springs, the tires and the rims.
We have oil-cooled CVT cooling systems. We are the only team in India which has implemented that up till now.
We've custom designed and manufactured every single component on the vehicle. And this is the lightest, the fastest and the strongest vehicle that we've ever built.
Who changed the oil? Explain me the procedure.
Presentations cleared. It was then time for the static tests that check the weight, dimensions, engines, and engineering of the buggies.
There were times when we had cars with 500 and 600 kg in the first Baja, and now this year we have a car which is just 127 kg. So that's a drastic reduction of weight, but also when they reduce the car, they need to understand that the car may fly and it may not have a good traction or a good stability, and hence they need to improve their suspension, steering and brakes in those terms so that even with low weight, they can compete in a better way.
You're building an off-road vehicle, so unless you have great build quality, they're not going to last. If you have weak joints, if you're not meticulous in everything that you do, it's not going to work.
The static tests are only the beginning of the difficult journey to the rise to the top of the competition. As you can see behind me, we have the dynamic tests, and these in no way can be taken lightly.
The dynamic tests begin with a brake test, where it's necessary for all wheels to lock as soon as the driver hits the brakes. Next up was the most popular test, acceleration. Floor the pedal, answer your need for speed, and score a time that's hard for the others to beat. Teams were then introduced to the sled pull test, where each buggy had to pull a sled weighing nearly 150 kilos. Scoring was on the basis of how far the buggies could pull that sled. There's also the maneuverability test. Compared to last year's track, the track this year was tighter and narrower and really pushed the driver's skills to the limit. Changes were also made to the suspension and traction test.
We have a small mud bog, and it is tougher. We have a huge rock crawl, and we've introduced a new element of tires, which is very interesting because it changes the dynamics of the car immediately. You may bounce off, you can take it slow, you may fall nose down, you may topple, all of that.
Drivers who push their vehicles hard faced some scary, spectacular jumps, but were rewarded with the best times.
All those tests lead right here the 4-hour-long endurance race. It's the ultimate test of design innovation, manufacturing precision, practicality, and reliability. And like with every year since 2007, the test track for this event is only tougher and harder to beat.
The teams were up against a 5.2-kilometer long natural terrain track.
I went to the track personally with my co-driver. It is definitely much difficult than last year, but it is not very difficult. We can easily compete it, and our vehicle is designed in such a way that it can conquer the track.
We've tested the vehicle for over 500 kilometers, and we have complete faith in our driver, and we have complete faith in our car.
Armed with nerves of steel and hoping for the best, the 140-odd teams lined up, raring to go. And once the red lights turned green, it was time to floor the accelerator and set off. The race began carefully, with only a handful of the lightweight buggies roaring ahead. The others chose to steadily navigate the undulating terrain, preparing themselves for each obstacle. Like the years before, the track threw camel humps and even a water splash that asked for some bravado from the drivers. A patch of forest land made the layout a bit more challenging, while the corners begged for speed and were the preferred sections for overtakes. But the teams on track refused to let the conditions get the better of them. Eventually, as the third hour rolled by, pit stops were taken, buggies were refueled, and some drivers changed. A few buggies surrendered to the track and had to be wheeled back to the garage. Despite the increased difficulty of the track, the buggies and their drivers continued to give it their all as they soldiered on through the fourth and final hour of the race.
The track was so much beautifully designed. It was so fatigued. The car gets so fatigued. Lag gayi thi driver ki.
It was really tough. The stretch of the booby track was really tough. It was very it had a fatigue. It's about a kilometer, and it is very stressful for me.
100% परफॉर्मेंस था गाड़ी का। बस हमारा ये था कि मतलब थोड़ा एक्सपीरियंस हमें पाँचवा साल है इस बार, तो वो बस ये हमने मतलब बेस तो बना लिया है। अब वो जो छोटा छोटा चीज़ होता है जो 99 से 100% के लिए 1% चाहिए होता है, उसकी बस कमी है।
The points were tallied and top laurels were won by the College of Engineering Pune, the Allard College of Engineering Pune and the B.R. Ambedkar National Institute of Technology Jalandhar were judged the second and third best team respectively.
And while the winners have a reason to celebrate, all the participants know that this is not the end of their event. After all, there remains an opportunity for them to showcase their skills to the industry.
Yes, the dust is settled, but there's more in store. Each year, SAE Baha provides an exclusive recruitment platform for the participating students. Nearly 10 of the country's most reputed companies descend to tap into the talent, and down the years, more than 500 students have been recruited through SAE Baha.
Being part of Baha helps us communicate with various industrial experts and get to know their solutions and get to know what they feel like in industry, how the industry works in those conditions.
Even our college supports these kind of activities with almost 80% of the funding from college.
We get to apply what we study in classrooms, and in the end it's all fun, but it changes life.
But it doesn't end there. After 10 years, Baha SAE India will add another feather to its cap with a second Baha competition set to take place in Ropar, Punjab in March 2018.
We are doing a second Baha. So that will allow us to take in more teams. We are going to start slow. This Baha we have now reached of the order of 150 teams can participate. The second Baha will start with another 30, 40, 50 teams, take some time, become comfortable, and then make it to the same size as this one. So that will allow doubling the participation. Because we cannot do any more than this in one location at one time. And if that's successful, then maybe 3, 4, 5 years from now we can think of a third Baha.
And as preparations begin for next year, the premise for the event remains the same. It's a platform for India's future engineering minds to showcase their mettle, to dare to turn their dreams to reality by going past the limits of what was thought possible.